I married up, but she married richer. That's what I kept telling myself as I stood in the doorway of our marble-floored kitchen, watching my wife Emily count $100 bills like a Vegas dealer. At 40, I'd built a decent tech consulting business from nothing, but apparently decent wasn't enough anymore. "Thomas, we need to talk about the credit cards," Emily said, without looking up from her money pile. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. A $200 salon job she got every 3 weeks. "I'm a little over my limit this month." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. A little over. I almost laughed. Emily's idea of a little over was like calling the Grand Canyon a small ditch. Last month's American Express bill had been $8,000. For what? Designer handbags, spa treatments, and dinners at restaurants where a single appetizer cost more than most people's grocery budget. "How much over?" I asked, though I already knew I didn't want the answer. $12,000. She finally looked up, her green eyes sparkling with that innocent expression she'd perfected over our 5 years of marriage. "But I got some amazing deals. This Chanel bag was marked down from $4,000 to $3,000. I practically saved us $1,000. I rubbed my temples, feeling the familiar headache building. "Emily, that's not how saving money works. You spent $3,000 we don't have on a purse. It's not a purse, it's an investment piece." She stood up, smoothing down her designer dress. "Another investment, no doubt. Besides, your business is doing well. Rita told me you just landed that new client." Rita was my office manager, a sharp-tongued woman in her 50s who'd been with me since I started the company. She was also one of the few people who saw through Emily's charm offensive. I made a mental note to remind Rita that my wife didn't need updates on our financial situation. "The client pays in installments over 6 months, I explained, for what felt like the 100th time. "We can't spend money we haven't earned yet." Emily waved her hand dismissively. "You worry too much. Money always works itself out." Easy for her to say. She'd grown up with parents who handed her everything on a silver platter. Her father owned 3 car dealerships, and her mother spent her days playing tennis at the country club. Emily had never worked a real job in her life, unless you counted the boutique interior design business she'd started with my money 2 years ago, a business that had yet to turn a profit. "I'm going to grab a beer," I said, heading toward the refrigerator. "Actually, I'm meeting Lila and Becca for drinks tonight. It's Lila's birthday, remember?" I didn't remember, but that wasn't unusual. Emily's social calendar was more packed than a presidential campaign schedule. Lila and Becca were her best friends from college, 2 women who'd also married well and spent their days competing over who could burn through their husband's money fastest. "Have fun," I said, though I meant the opposite. Those 3 together were like a financial hurricane, leaving destruction in their wake. After Emily left in her BMW, a birthday gift to herself that I'd somehow ended up financing, I settled into my home office with a stack of bills. The numbers weren't pretty. Between Emily's spending sprees and the mortgage on our oversized house, we were walking a tightrope over a pit of debt. My phone buzzed with a text from Rita. "New client wants to meet tomorrow at 9. Also, your wife called asking about the payment schedule again." I typed back, "Tell her we're still waiting for contracts to be signed." It was a lie, but a necessary one. The client had already paid half up front, money that was currently sitting in our business account. Money that Emily didn't need to know about until I figured out how to keep it away from her shopping addiction. Around 11, I heard Emily's car in the driveway. She stumbled through the front door, giggling and talking loudly on her phone. "I know, right? He has no idea," she was saying. "Thomas is so clueless about everything. He thinks I'm just shopping for fun." I froze at the top of the stairs listening. "The marriage is basically over anyway," Emily continued, kicking off her designer heels. "I'm only staying for the money, He's harmless. He'll never figure out what's really going on. And honestly, Mason is so much better in every way that matters. Mason. I knew that name. Mason Torres, the personal trainer at Emily's gym. The guy with the ridiculous sports car and the even more ridiculous tan. The guy who'd been liking all of Emily's Instagram photos for the past 6 months. Trust me, girls, Thomas will keep paying the bills while I have my fun. He's too nice to do anything about it. What's he going to do, divorce me? He'd lose half of everything. She was still laughing as she hung up and stumbled toward the kitchen. I stayed frozen on the stairs, my mind reeling. 5 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. I was nothing more than a walking ATM to her, a convenient source of funding for her affair. I waited until I heard her go into the bathroom, then crept down to my office. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop and started typing. Emily, I won't get in your way anymore. Consider this your freedom. Thomas. I printed the note and left it on her pillow, then grabbed my car keys. I needed to drive, to think, to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. But first, I had some research to do. If Emily thought I was too harmless to fight back, she was about to learn how wrong she could be. As I drove through the empty streets, one thought kept echoing in my mind. She had no idea who she was really married to. I spent that first night in a hotel downtown, staring at the ceiling and planning my next moves. By morning, I had a strategy that would have made a military general proud. Step 1. Secure the assets. I was at the bank when it opened at 9, armed with account statements and a grim determination. The young teller, probably fresh out of college, looked nervous as I explained what I needed. I want to move all funds from our joint accounts into my business account, I told her. And I need to remove my wife's access to our credit cards. Sir, for joint accounts, we typically require both parties to be present for major changes. I slid a folder across the desk. These accounts were opened with my credit score and my income verification. My wife has no independent income. I'm also the primary on all our credit cards. The teller's supervisor, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, came over to help. After reviewing the paperwork, she nodded. Everything appears to be in order. We can make these changes immediately. Within an hour, Emily's financial world was about to collapse, and she had no idea. Step 2. Legal protection. My lawyer, David Chen, was a bulldog in an expensive suit. I'd used him for business contracts, but today's meeting was personal. I need a separation agreement drawn up, I told him, and I need it to be ironclad. David leaned back in his leather chair. What's the situation? I explained about the affair, the spending, and Emily's charming phone conversation from the night before. David took notes, occasionally shaking his head. The good news is you documented everything, he said. The bad news is Massachusetts is a no-fault state, so the affair won't matter much in divorce proceedings. But her spending patterns and lack of income work in your favor. I don't want a divorce yet, I said. I want her to understand what life looks like without my credit cards first. David smiled, not a pleasant expression on his sharp features. I can work with that. Give me 24 hours. Step 3. Damage control. Back at the office, Rita was waiting with coffee and a knowing look. Rough night? She asked. You could say that. I told her about Emily's phone call and my morning activities. Rita whistled low. About time. I've been watching that woman bleed you dry for years. I need you to do me a favor, I said. Emily's going to call here looking for information about our accounts and payments. Tell her everything's tied up in legal review. With pleasure, Rita said. Anything else? Yeah. Can you find out everything you can about Mason Torres? I have a feeling Emily's not his only side project. By noon, Rita had a full report. Mason Torres, 28, worked at Elite Fitness downtown. He drove a leased Corvette he couldn't afford, lived in a studio apartment in the expensive part of town, and had been seen around town with at least 3 different married women in the past year. He's a professional homewrecker, Rita said, sliding the file across my desk. And according to my source at the gym, he's in debt up to his artificially whitened teeth. Perfect, I said. I was just finishing lunch when my phone started ringing. Emily's contact photo, a glamour shot she'd insisted on using, filled the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. After the fifth call, I listened to her messages. Thomas, where are you? My card was declined at the grocery store. This is so embarrassing. Call me back. Thomas, seriously, what's going on? None of my cards are working. People are staring at me. Thomas, I know you're getting these messages. This isn't funny. I'm stranded at the mall. The desperation in her voice grew with each message. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. My phone buzzed with a text. Thomas, please. I'm sorry about whatever I did. Just call me back. I typed back. Try Mason's credit score. Then I turned off my phone. That evening, I drove past our house. Emily's BMW was in the driveway, and I could see her pacing back and forth in the living room, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling Lila and Becca for emotional support. I wondered how supportive they'd be when they realized Emily could no longer afford to pick up the check at their expensive dinners. The next morning brought a new flood of messages, these more frantic than before. Thomas, the mortgage payment bounced. The bank called me. What did you do? I went to the bank. They said you moved all our money. You can't do this to me. Thomas, I'll do anything. Just please don't leave me with nothing. But the most interesting message came from Rita. You need to see this, she said, forwarding me a link to Instagram. It was a video posted by someone named Jim Gossip Girl. The shaky footage showed Emily's BMW being loaded onto a repo truck while she stood on the sidewalk in her designer workout clothes, screaming at the driver. This is a mistake, she was yelling. My husband will pay for this. The comments were brutal. Isn't that the woman who always brags about her husband's money? Guess the money ran out. Karma's a snake. I watched the video 3 times, feeling a mix of satisfaction and guilt. The satisfaction won. My phone rang. David Chen. Your separation papers are ready, he said. I'm having them delivered to your wife this afternoon. Fair warning, she's not going to like the terms. What terms? You're offering to cover basic living expenses, rent on a modest apartment, grocery money, health insurance, but no more credit cards, no more shopping sprees, and no more BMW payments. She can take it or leave it. And if she leaves it? Then she's on her own financially while we work out a permanent arrangement. Given her spending history and lack of income, I'd say she'll take it. That afternoon, I finally went home. Emily's car was gone, repossessed obviously, and the house felt different somehow, quieter, less oppressive. I found Emily in the bedroom, surrounded by designer handbags and shoes. She was crying, but her makeup was still perfect. Even in crisis, she maintained appearances. Thomas, she said when she saw me. Thank God you're here. This has all been a terrible mistake. No mistake, I said calmly. I heard your phone conversation 2 nights ago, about Mason, about how clueless and harmless I am. Her face went white under her foundation. You were listening to my private conversation? In my own house, yes. Funny how that works. She stood up, trying to regain her composure. Thomas, I was drunk. I didn't mean any of that. Which part didn't you mean? The part about the marriage being over, or the part about only staying for my money? Emily opened her mouth, then closed it. For once in our marriage, she had nothing to say. You'll be getting some papers later today, I continued. Read them carefully. Your free ride is over, Emily. Time to see how the other half lives. I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. Thomas, wait. What about Mason? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. What about him? Are you going to do something to him? Me? I'm too harmless, remember? Too nice to do anything. But as I walked away, I was already planning Mason's downfall. Emily thought she knew me, but she was about to discover that still waters run very deep indeed, and some currents are dangerous. Mason Torres was a creature of habit, which made him easy to track. Every morning at 6, he arrived at Elite Fitness in his ridiculous yellow Corvette. Every evening at 8, he left for whatever social engagement would advance his gold-digging career. I'd been watching him for 3 days, learning his patterns, when I spotted something interesting. Mason wasn't just seeing Emily. On Tuesday, he had lunch with a redhead in a Mercedes. Wednesday brought coffee with a brunette in a Jaguar. Thursday featured dinner with a blonde in a Bentley. The guy was running a full-scale operation. "He's busier than a politician during election season," Rita observed when I showed her the photos I'd taken. "How does he keep them all straight?" "Probably has a spreadsheet," I said. "The question is, do they know about each other?" That's when Rita smiled her most devious smile. "Want to find out?" She'd done some digging and discovered that the brunette with the Jaguar was married to Vincent Caruso, a man who owned several import businesses around Boston. The kind of businesses that dealt in more than just olive oil and espresso machines, if you caught my drift. "Mrs. Caruso's first name is Angela," Rita said. "And according to my sources, her husband has a very traditional view of marriage fidelity." "Meaning?" "Meaning Mason might want to update his life insurance policy." I spent Friday following Angela Caruso and Mason to a hotel downtown. They weren't exactly subtle, kissing in the lobby, holding hands in the elevator. I got several clear photos of them entering a room together. That evening, I created an anonymous email account and sent the photos to 3 addresses: Emily's, Vincent Caruso's business email, and the Elite Fitness general manager. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks. I didn't have to wait long. Saturday morning, my phone rang. Emily, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Thomas, something terrible has happened. Mason. He's been seeing other women. Someone sent me photos." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, not sounding sorry at all. "I confronted him at the gym. Everyone was watching. It was so humiliating." "What did he say?" "He said I was crazy, that the photos were fake. But then this woman showed up, Angela something. She started screaming at both of us in Italian. I think she was married." Awkward. "Thomas, I think I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Can we talk?" "We are talking. I mean in person. I want to come home." I looked around the peaceful house, enjoying the silence and the absence of shopping bags cluttering every surface. "This is your home now, Emily. You made that choice." "Thomas, please." I hung up. An hour later, Rita called with an update. "Mason Torres just got fired," she said gleefully. "Apparently the gym has a strict policy about staff fraternizing with married clients." "Who knew?" "What about Vincent Caruso?" "Word is he had a very educational conversation with Mason yesterday evening. Nothing violent, you understand. Just a friendly chat about boundaries and consequences." "And Mason's reaction?" "He's been calling around town looking for a new job. Also, his Corvette got repossessed this morning. Seems he missed a few payments." I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Mason's carefully constructed lifestyle was crumbling faster than Emily's credit rating. Sunday brought a new development. I was having coffee at a cafe near Emily's temporary apartment when I saw her walking down the street with Lila and Becca. Except walking wasn't the right word. Emily was gesticulating wildly while her friends kept checking their phones and looking uncomfortable. I moved to a table near the window to eavesdrop. "You guys have to help me," Emily was saying as they sat down at a nearby table. "Thomas has lost his mind. He cut off all my cards, took back the car, and now he won't even talk to me." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your trainer," Lila said coldly. Emily's mouth fell open. "How did you—" "Everyone knows Emily," Becca added. "The whole thing with Angela Caruso is all over town. Her husband's people were asking questions about you too." "You're toxic right now," Lila continued. "Richard doesn't want me associating with women who cheat on their husbands. It's bad for his business reputation. Same here, Becca said. Sorry, Em, but you're on your own with this one. I watched Emily's face crumble as her best friends abandoned her. The same friends who'd encouraged her affair just a week ago were now treating her like she had a contagious disease. But what am I supposed to do? Emily asked desperately. I don't have any money. I can't even afford groceries. Get a job, Lila suggested with a shrug. Like normal people. I don't know how to get a job. I've never had to work. Then you better learn fast, Becca said, standing up. Come on, Lila. We're going to be late for yoga. They left Emily sitting alone at the table, staring into her untouched latte. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered her phone call from that night, her casual cruelty, her assumption that I was too weak to fight back. My sympathy evaporated. Monday morning brought the final piece of my plan into focus. Rita had discovered that Mason was desperate enough to take a job at a discount gym across town, a significant step down from elite fitness. More importantly, he was broke, humiliated, and increasingly paranoid about Vincent Caruso's continued interest in his activities. He's been asking around about leaving town, Rita reported. Seems to think Boston isn't healthy for him anymore. Probably a smart assessment, I said. There's more. Emily tried to get her old friends to loan her money for rent. They all said no. All of them? Every single one. Apparently, word got out about her debts. No one wants to risk their money on someone who spent $8,000 a month on handbags. That afternoon, Emily called me again. Thomas, I need help. Real help. I'm going to lose my apartment. Have you considered getting a job? I tried, but I don't have any experience, and the places that are hiring, they don't pay enough to live on. Welcome to the real world, Emily. Please, Thomas. I know I hurt you, but I can't end up on the street. I thought about it for a long moment. Emily was learning hard lessons about consequences and reality. But I wasn't cruel enough to let her become homeless. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. I'll pay for a modest apartment and basic expenses for 6 months. But you get a job, any job, within 2 weeks, and you stay away from Mason Torres. That won't be a problem, she said bitterly. He won't return my calls. Smart man. Thomas, do you think we could ever work things out? Between us? I looked around my peaceful house, thought about my stress-free bank account, and considered the lessons I'd learned about my wife's true character. No, Emily, I don't think we could. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete peace of mind. Emily would survive, she was tougher than she looked, but she'd never again take anyone's kindness for granted. As for Mason, last I heard he'd taken a job at a gym in Florida. Apparently, Vincent Caruso's influence extended beyond Boston city limits, and Mason had decided that a change of scenery would be good for his health. I couldn't argue with that logic. 3 months later, I was a different man, living a different life. The house felt like home again, without Emily's chaos and constant demands. My bank account was recovering, and for the first time in years, I could buy groceries without calculating the impact on our debt. Emily had found a job at a department store cosmetics counter, a humbling experience for someone who used to spend more on a single shopping trip than she now made in a month. She was living in a studio apartment across town, driving a used Honda Civic, and learning to shop at discount stores. I thought our story was over. I was wrong. The call came on a Thursday evening. Emily sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Thomas, you have to help me. Someone vandalized the store. They wrote terrible things about me on the windows. I think I'm going to get fired. What kind of things? Gold digger, home wrecker, stuff like that. And they poured something pink all over the makeup displays. It smells like protein powder. Mason. Even from Florida, he was still causing problems. Have you called the police? They said it's probably just random vandalism. But Thomas, I know it was him. He's been texting me angry messages about how I ruined his life. I felt a familiar surge of protectiveness, which surprised me. Emily had betrayed me, used me, and shown nothing but contempt for our marriage. But she was still my wife, technically, and no one else got to terrorize her. "Forward me the texts," I said. The messages were ugly, filled with blame and threats. Mason blamed Emily for his job loss, his financial problems, and his exile from Boston. He was clearly spiraling, and Emily had become his target. I made some calls. Vincent Caruso's nephew ran a security company. For a reasonable fee, they could ensure that Mason's attention was redirected away from Emily and toward more pressing concerns, like staying alive. But that felt too easy, too clean. Mason had humiliated my wife in public, cost me thousands of dollars, and now he was harassing her from across the country. He deserved something more personal. That's when I had an idea that was either brilliant or insane. I called Emily back. "I want you to do exactly what I tell you," I said. "No questions, no arguments." "Okay," she said immediately. The old Emily would have demanded explanations and tried to negotiate. This Emily had learned the value of trust. "Call Mason. Tell him you want to meet and apologize. Tell him you have money for him, compensation for what he lost." "Thomas, I don't have any money." "I know. Just get him to come back to Boston. Tell him to meet you at the Waterfront Hotel bar on Saturday night at 8. "What are you planning?" "Justice." Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for what I had in mind. I arrived at the Waterfront Hotel early and positioned myself at the bar with a clear view of the entrance. Rita had insisted on coming along for moral support, and she was stationed at a table nearby with her phone ready to record whatever happened. Emily arrived at 7:30, looking nervous in a simple black dress, probably the most modest outfit she'd worn in years. She ordered a club soda and checked her phone constantly. Mason walked in at 8:15, looking like a man who'd spent 3 months in hell. His golden tan had faded, his designer clothes had been replaced with off-the-rack basics, and his usual confident swagger was gone. He spotted Emily immediately and walked over with the predatory smile I remembered. "Well, well, look who finally came to her senses." "Hello, Mason," Emily said quietly. "You said you had money for me. How much?" "We should discuss that privately." Mason looked around the crowded bar. "This is private enough. How much?" Emily glanced toward me and I nodded slightly. "Actually, Mason, I lied. I don't have any money, but my husband wanted to meet you." Mason's face went white as I stood up and walked over to their table. "Mason Torres," I said pleasantly. "We haven't been formally introduced. I'm Thomas Richardson, Emily's husband." Mason started to stand, but I put a firm hand on his shoulder and pushed him back down. "Sit. We're going to have a conversation." "Look, man, whatever Emily told you—" "She didn't tell me anything. I figured it out myself. You see, Mason, you made a mistake. You assumed I was weak because I'm not flashy like you. You thought I wouldn't fight back because I don't drive a sports car or spend my days at the gym." Mason glanced around nervously. The bar was crowded, but no one was paying attention to us. "But here's what you didn't know about me," I continued. "I grew up poor. Really poor. I learned early that the loudest guy in the room is usually compensating for something, and I learned that real power doesn't announce itself." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I know about Angela Caruso. I know about the other women. I know about your debts, your fake lifestyle, and your desperate attempts to find new victims in Florida." "You can't prove anything," Mason said, but his voice was shaking. "I don't need to prove anything. Vincent Caruso's people are very thorough. They know where you live, where you work, what time you leave for work every morning." Mason's face went gray. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear, permanently, find a new city, a new state, a new life, and if you ever contact my wife again, If you ever come back to Boston, if you ever even think about either of us. I let the threat hang in the air. The Carusos have long memories and longer reach. Do we understand each other? Mason nodded frantically. Good. Now, there's one more thing. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. I want you to apologize to my wife, on video, for the record. What? You heard me. Apologize for the affair, for the harassment, for the vandalism. Make it sincere. Mason looked at Emily, then back at me. He could see there was no way out. Emily, I'm sorry, he said to the camera. I'm sorry for the affair, for causing problems in your marriage, and for the things I did after. It was all my fault. You didn't deserve any of it. Very good, I said, stopping the recording. Now get out of my sight. Mason practically ran from the bar. I watched him go, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Thomas, Emily said quietly, thank you. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She looked tired, older, but somehow more real than she'd ever been during our marriage. You're welcome. Does this mean, could we maybe try again? I considered the question seriously. Emily had learned hard lessons about money, friendship, and consequences. She'd discovered what it meant to work for a living, to budget, to live within her means. She was no longer the spoiled, entitled woman I'd married, but she was also no longer the woman I'd fallen in love with. That woman, I realized, had never really existed. No, Emily, we can't try again. Her face fell, but she nodded. I understand. But we can be friends, real friends, maybe for the first time. She smiled then, a genuine smile without calculation or manipulation. I'd like that. I paid for our drinks and walked Emily to her car, the modest Honda Civic that represented her new reality. Thomas, she said before getting in, I really am sorry. For all of it. I know you are. And I want you to know I'm actually happier now. Poorer, but happier. Does that make sense? It did make sense. Emily had spent years trapped in a life built on lies and debt, always needing more to fill the emptiness inside. Now she had less money but more purpose, fewer possessions, but more self-respect. It makes perfect sense, I said. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. Emily kept her job at the department store and eventually got promoted to assistant manager. She started dating a teacher, a kind, steady man who appreciated her for who she was, not what she could buy. Mason Torres disappeared completely. Some say he moved to Alaska. Others think he changed his name and started over somewhere in the Midwest. I didn't care as long as he stayed gone. As for me, I sold the big house and bought a smaller place near the water. I expanded my business, hired 2 new employees, and started dating a woman who paid for her own dinner and drove a car she'd bought with her own money. Life was good. But the best part was the lesson I'd learned about myself. I wasn't weak or harmless or too nice to fight back. I was strategic. I was patient. And when pushed too far, I was absolutely ruthless. Emily had wanted to marry someone with money. Instead, she'd married someone with power. The quiet, dangerous kind that comes from understanding people and knowing how to use that knowledge. She'd learned the difference the hard way, and she'd never forget it.